Okay, I was asked as this topic to look at the Mitzvah of Tzedaka. So that's, I think, what we're going to focus on for the next for a few weeks. I should apologise in advance. It's going to be a little interrupted because I have a school trip to Poland. I'm leaving a school trip to Poland next week and then back again. So I apologise. It'll be a little bit interrupted. But we're going to try and talk about the Mitzvah of Tzedaka. So it's very interesting because I guess a fair amount of halachic questions around Maaser, the idea of tithing, taking 10% of one's income and giving it to Tzedakah. And we will talk about the halachas of Maaser, but it's important to realize they're really two separate halachas. There's the mitzvah of Tzedakah, and then there's the halacha of Maaser, and the two are in a sense separate. Meaning to say, Maaser is the mitzvah to take the 10% of your income and give it to Tzedakah, but Tzedakah is an independent mitzvah of that. There may be people, for example, who are exempt from Maaser for whatever reason, but you still have a mitzvah of Tzedakah. In other words, they're two separate halachas over here. There's a mitzvah to give tzedakah irrespective of maaser. If there is we'll see shortly, if there's a needy person, a person who is poor, doesn't have enough food or clothing or whatever the case may be, and basic needs and necessities are there, then there's a mitzvah to give tzedakah to that person. Nothing to do with maaser, completely separate mitzvah. In fact, whether I have maaser money or not. And then there's a separate mitzvah. One of the ways that we perform the mitzvah tzedakah is the halacha of maaser. So each one needs to be analysed separately. They're really two separate topics. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off looking with some detail at the mitzvah of tzedakah and trying to understand it. And then once we've done the mitzvah of tzedakah, then we'll look at the subsection of Hilchos tzedakah, which is the rules of tithing, the rules of maaser. So tzedakah is clearly an important mitzvah. The idea of giving tzedakah, first of all, falls under the banner of chesed, which is one of the three pillars on which the world stands. The world obviously stands on Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. That's the first mission, the second Mishnah in Avos. More than that, the Pasuk says in Tehillim, Peites Olam Chesed Yibona. The world is built on kindness. We see HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating the world as a gift of an act of kindness to us. And in turn, we have to give kindness to others. Avraham Avinu, of course, is the Omer Chesed, right? The first of the fathers. Avraham Avinu is the Omer Chesed. So it's clearly it clearly is a primary value. In fact, this is one of the qualities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu praised Avraham for, and commented on. He knows that this will be a value that Avraham will embed in his descendants, because Hashem, in next week's Sedra, Parshas Vayikra, turns to Avraham, or turns to himself first, and says, "I'm going to destroy Sodom, but I want to tell Avraham about this, because Avraham is special." Why is Avraham special? Says Hashem in Bereshis Yud Ches, because I know that he is embedding in his children and in the future various values. What are the values? Ki yodativ, says Hashem, I know, L'man asher yitzaveh es beisoi ve'es zara acharav, that Avraham will command his household and his descendants after him, la'asos tzedakah or mishpat, to do tzedakah and mishpat. So there's almost two pillars of the building of Klal Yisrael. Hashem looks at the Jewish people about, and he says one value is mishpat, truthfulness, yashrus, living in line with din, with justice, and so on and so forth. And then there's another which is tzedakah, which means righteousness or rightness, and also understood by Chazal to mean what we nowadays call charity. So this is a very core central value to how a person is meant to live. It's at the root and foundation of what it means to be founded as Klal Yisrael. And then the Gemara tells us many wonderful things about tzedakah. There is a Gemara in Shabbos in which Rabbi Kiva says tzedakah. Oh, it's really a pasuk. I shouldn't quote Rabbi Kiva. The pasuk says in Mishli, chapter 10, pasuk 2, tzedakah tatzil mimoves, that charity saves from death. So the Gemara talks about this. It tells a very famous story of the daughter of Rabbi Kiva, who at her wedding sticks a pin into the wall. She takes out a pin from her hair and sticks into the wall, and it by coincidence traps a snake, pins a snake to the wall. And people ask her what gave you the merit of this happening. And when they investigated in the evening, she, as the colour on the day of her wedding, had noticed a poor person and made sure that they had a portion of food to eat, and so on and so forth. So Tzedaka Tatzil Mimoves. There's an amazing medrash in Ovos de Rabbi Nosson. Actually, let me just explain what Ovos de Rabbi Nosson is. So there were over the years, the final years of the second Beis Hamikdash and the first years after the destruction of the second temple, there was a flourishing of Torah Sheba'al Peh, and many great rabbanim taught Torah. About 200 years after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a realization that there was a need to collect the sayings of these teachers of Torah. And the first and most important and major collection that was made was, or maybe not the first, but certainly the one that became the most dominant and important, was the collection made by Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, which we call Mishnah. That's what we call Mishnah. So it's a collection of sayings and teachings of Rabbanim of the time. Amongst those collections are many halachic works, Shabbos about the halachos of Shabbat, and Baba Mitzvah about the laws of damages, and Zavochim about how to bring sacrifices in the Beis Hamikdash. And then there's one collection called Ovos, Pirkei Ovos, which is about what we would call ethical values. But there were other collections of rabbinic statements made, and these are known collectively by the term Brisa. Brisa means outside collections of teaching of the Torah, things that weren't included in the Mishnah but were still important collections of the teachings of Chazal, or the teachings of the sages. One of these collections is known as Ovos de Rabbi Nosson, effectively the ethical teachings collected and collated by someone called Rabbi Nosson. And in that collection, it brings a story in which various of the Mishnaic rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Yeshua and so on, were walking in Yerushalayim, and they passed the Har Habayis, the Temple Mount, the scene of the destroyed Beis Hamikdash. And Rabbi Yeshua says, what a terrible situation. We no longer have a Beis Hamikdash, we can't bring korbanos. How are we going to atone for ourselves? And on that, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to them, don't worry, there's another route to kapara, there's another route to atonement, which is giving tzedakah. This is based again on a pasuk in Mishli 21, in which the pasuk says, "Asay mishpat tzedakah, nivchar Hashem mizevach." That doing mishpat and tzedakah, again, those same two key values. First of all, honesty and yashrus, and secondly, tzedakah is preferable, more choice in Hashem's eyes than sacrifices. So tzedakah is a way of achieving spiritual and physical salvation. We say this really on Rosh Hashanah in a form, in Yom Kippur, in the prayer of Nusana Tokev. We say Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, Maviu and Esraya Gzeira. So Teshuvah is important, Tefillah is important, Tzedakah is important. So Tzedakah is a very primary, a very basic and primary part of what it means to be a Jew. That's the mitzvah of Tzedakah. So that's number one. The second thing to comment on is the word Tzedakah, because it's a very interesting word. Tzedek means rightness or righteousness, and it's not that different to justice. If justice means doing that which is just, tzedek is also doing that which is just. So, for example, the pasuk says that a court, tzedek tirdof, one should pursue justice. So it's interesting that we use a word which is etymologically, grammatically very similar to the word tzedek, justice, tzedakah. It's a form, a variant of the word, perhaps a slight softening of it with a hey added at the end, but it's a form of justice. Now, tzedakah can't be enforced by a claim in court. I can take you to Beis Din, to court, if you owe me money that you have to pay back. I can take you to court if you stole something from me, if you damaged me, you drove into my car. That's mishpat, that's tzedek. I can't take you to court to insist that you give me tzedakah, at least not in the normal system of courts of claims. On the other hand, we don't use in Hebrew the word charity, because charity implies that it's a pure gift of gracious giving. And that's not how we see it. We see that there is a justice and a righteousness and a rightness about giving tzedakah. So it's not just generous outpouring of chesed, but there's an element of justice to it, even though it's not an enforceable claim like a debt or damages might be. Maybe the best translation of this in English nowadays is something like social justice. So it's not, we don't just use the word charity. It's not just an option. We humans have responsibilities to each other. There's an obligation to it. There's a rightness and a righteousness and a demand to it. I have to, if I have, give to others who don't have. It's not just an optional, it's a nice thing to do. It's nice to invite a guest. It's nice to, be friendly to people if I wish. I don't have to if I don't want to. It's not like that. It's a chiyuv, it's an obligation. There's a demand to it. And that's why we use this word tzedakah. It's not just, tzedakah we translate as charity, but it's a mistranslation in the sense that charity can sound like something completely voluntary, whereas in our understanding, it's not completely voluntary. It's as the Torah teaches us, it's a tzedek, it's an obligation, a duty that I have to do. Okay, so what we've said so far is that tzedakah, the Hebrew word for charity, tzedakah, it has within it the idea of it being a demand, almost an obligation, a justice element to it. We've spoken about the significance of tzedakah, that tzedakah is viewed by Chazal as being part of one of the three pillars that maintains the world, and Passukim and Mishnah and so on that speak about its importance. What I now want to do is look at the Passukim in the Torah together for us as a group, to look at the Passukim in the Torah that tell us about tzedakah, and try and analyze them together. And here, I'm conscious that I've been speaking for sort of course of an hour by myself, but here I'm handing over the hard work to you guys. So let's open our Chumashim at in Vayikra, in Sefer Vayikra, in Perek Chaf Hei, Pasuk Lamed Vav. That should be in this the Chumashim we're using here. That should be page 702, is that right? Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the Passukim of Tzedakah. Just to contextualize it, it's part of a series of parshios in Sefer Vayikra. We always think of Sefer Vayikra as talking about sort of Beis HaMikdash work and Korbanos, Toras Kohanim, but Vayikra has a very significant section that deals with other matters. Kedoshim deals with concept of Kedusha, sanctity, and so on. So this is a sequence talking about this. And Pasuk Lamed Hei says as follows. Sorry, Pasuk Lamed Hei. V'chi yomuch achicha, if your brother becomes impoverished, umotza yodoi imach, and his hand, that means his ability to support himself, becomes weak with you, v'hechzakta boy, you should strengthen him, ger v'toshov, whether a convert or a citizen, v'chai imach, and he should live with you. Then the Passukim carry on and they talk about other mitzvahs which we're not going to go into today, like if you lend this person money, don't take interest, and don't oppress the person, and various other halachos which we're not going to go into. But this is the first of the Passukim that we're going to look at, which deals with the concept of tzedakah. And let's analyze these Passukim. We'll have a look maybe at this Pasuk just for a moment by yourselves, and tell me what do you think about this Pasuk? What comes out about this Pasuk? Any thoughts about this Pasuk? Yeah.
Interesting that it's saying if he falters in your proximity, it's almost like you're making a judgment as to whether he is impoverished or not. It's based on your standards.
Very, very interesting point. Okay, this is a very difficult turn of phrase, and it's very unclear what it means. You've really actually made 2 points. You've said a question and a suggested answer. And the question is, what's the if your brother becomes impoverished, or motoyodo and becomes impoverished, it becomes falters, imoch, with you. It's a very strange term of language. If your brother, your fellow, of course your brother doesn't mean brother or sister, it means fellow, right? Your fellow person falters with you. What does that mean, falters with you? And that's your question, really. And you're suggesting an answer here that somehow it's about proximity, about my reading of the situation. Okay, we'll have a think about that. There is another with you, by the way, in the pasuk, which is at the end of the pasuk. What if this happens? There's two parts of the pasuk, two halves of the pasuk. If you have a certain situation, faltering and weakness, then you should do something, strengthen your fellow, v'chai imoch, and they should live again with you. So what's the with yous over here? What's this double with you in the pasuk? Sorry? Let's do empathy. Very nice answer. Okay, so one suggestion is this is empathy. That there should be a sense of togetherness, of shared experience. They're faltering with you. They're not something completely disconnected. And strengthen them again with you. They're not someone completely disconnected. So that's definitely a possibility. It's an idea of empathy. Your suggestion was?
I think you're going to see it as a judgment, like the person himself will decide.
An awareness of their situation, a judgment of it, maybe telling us that we have to make sure that they're genuine, that we understand what they're going through, we're sure we experience it. Proximity is also an interesting word. Is proximity relevant at all in Hilchos Tzedaka? Should proximity make a difference at all? You're meant to start charity begins at home in Halacha. Absolutely, you're meant to start it close at home. And we'll get to this later. We'll look at this in more detail. But basically, we define priorities in Tzedakah in many ways. Obviously, needs, for example, is one of the ways you define it. Who needs more? But one of the criteria we use, if you have two equal cases in front of you, is proximity. Proximity in location. Aniye ircha, the poverty-stricken people of your hometown ahead of people from far away. And the other proximity is relationshipal proximity, members of family ahead of people who are further afield. So imach might be proximity. So we've suggested imach as empathy, we've suggested imach as insight or awareness or judgment, and we've suggested imach as proximity because of Hilchos Tzedaka. Yes? Very similar to empathy. A sense of withness and togetherness and sharedness in this, yeah. Okay, so these are a number of suggestions. There are two more thoughts put forward on this idea. One picks up on the chai imoch, they should live with you. Meaning, in a sense, this is an extreme version of proximity, only if they can live with you. Don't maintain and give some tzedakah if it won't be with you. In other words, if you'll deprive yourself. So there's a limit to tzedakah also, which is boundaries. All of us have responsibility to support each other, emotionally, physically, and through tzedakah, but not if that's going to destroy you in the process. So Chazal say, don't give so much tzedakah that you'll end up impoverishing yourself, and then you'll need support. Shema ye'oni, lest you become poor. Don't go so. And we need that boundaries in tzedakah, in monetary support, and also in other areas of support. We all have to do chesed, but there's sometimes limits. Sometimes there's a case where the chesed will come. All chesed comes at a price. Right? You can't help someone unless you're willing to pay something for it. I don't know if it's mean financially. You're giving up something to help someone, but one does need a boundary as to how far you help. So v'chai imoch means they should live with you. In other words, if you can sustain them with you. But if you will sustain them and you'll be lost in the process of doing this, then that's a limit to tzedakah. So that's one understanding of imach. What else can we understand about imach? So maybe, yeah, sorry, Laza?
If you think what I'm saying is all of that, you could also mean that if you see that someone is as struggling as you are, in the sense that he is falling, but you're also kind of in a difficult situation. So in that sense, if two people are struggling, maybe it's better to struggle together.
That's very interesting. Right.
And help each other out.
Very, very nice point, actually. I hadn't thought of that. So we were speaking about empathy, and I'm fine, but experiencing it to a degree what they're going through. You're suggesting even a situation where literally I'm going through it, even if I'm struggling, which actually is reflected in halacha, that even a poor person needs to give tzedakah. There's limits, obviously. We just spoke about boundaries, but even a poor person has to give tzedakah. Very nice. Lovely. Thank you for that thought. Yeah.
Like different levels of tzedakah rather than just giving like that, give them give like a job or something.
Lovely. Bring them to live with you. In other words, maintain their dignity. Right, bring them up to a standard that's with you. So, also very, very important point. On a more psychological level, Rav Dessler, he takes actually some ideas that have just been floating around this room now about empathy and so on. But he says that all chesed is meant to be an expansion of self. A selfish person sees the world and sees their sense of I, their sense of anochi, their sense of self as just me. They have a very small circle. As you expand, you begin, your sense of I expands, your sense of identity with others. Till a magnificent person, a person who is a genuine Baal Chesed, to some degree or other sees everyone as being part of their lived experience, and therefore expands and overflows themselves, transcends their limitations, and therefore does chesed. All chesed has an aspect of transcendence, of overflowing my limitations. And also maybe the idea of imach, that I'm overflowing my limitations, I'm expanding my sense of self, and therefore supporting that's also psychology of the support that I'm giving to others. So these are a number of suggestions around imach. I actually wanted to add one other. We said about imach ensuring that you don't become impoverished, and there was one other that I want to say which is just in my mind now. Okay, so either way, this is the pasuk. This is one of the important pasukim in Vayikra, helping someone and lifting someone with one, in proximity to one, and many of the important halachos of tzedakah already emerging from this pasuk. Okay, let's have a look at a second set of pasukim. These are pasukim in Devarim, chapter 16, Perek Zayin. Passukim, let's have a look, Perek Zayin. Sorry, Perek Vav, my apologies. Chapter 15. Here we are, page 1016, chapter Vav, chapter 15, Pasuk 7 and 8. Okay, so this pasuk says as follows: is everyone with me in page 1016? Yeah. So this is the other primary source pasuk of the Mitzvah of Tzedaka. Kiyeh b'cha evyon me'achad achecha ba'achad sharecha. When there is a destitute person amongst you, from one of your brethren, in one of your gates, in your land, in the land that Hashem has given you, don't harden your hearts, and don't close your hands, from your brethren, the poor person, but you should surely open your hands to this person. And the ha'aveit tavitenu de machsera sheyachzoloi, you should lend to this person their needs that they are lacking, which is a form of tzedakah. Okay, so this again is quite a complicated sequence of psukim. So maybe let's just take a moment and try and have a look at these psukim and analyze what's going on, because these are really too complicated psukim. Let's actually just take them one by one, just for ease. So there's pasuk 7, pasuk Zayin, and then pasuk Ches. What do we think about these two psukim? Yes. So again, this is a very important source pasuk for the idea of priorities. In fact, to build it up, it says achicha, your brethren, but achat sharecha, in one of your gates. In those days, cities have gates, and others in your city. But artzacha, in your land. So it's expanding. Ashayivcha, i.e. the land of Israel. So it's also telling us that somehow Israel comes into the scale of priorities. And we'll see this later when we learn halacha, that Eretz Israel is a factor. In other words, once I'm outside my own city, if I have a choice of two foreign cities, New York or Yerushalayim, go for Eretz Israel over non-Eretz Israel. And absolutely, so you see geography in the Passukim. One very, very good point. Yeah.
I picked up on the fact that it says you should provide him with whatever is requirement, whatever is lacking to him.
Yeah.
It's almost sounds a bit of a contradiction to of making oneself a corporation at the expense, not and providing for another person's needs at the expense of oneself. Because it doesn't make it clear here, honestly, doesn't make it clear that you should make sure that you're not being affected like, in a negative way by giving over to
It doesn't include that limitation here. That's a very fine point. It also though says whatever is lacking to this person. And here there seems to be a subjective element to the tzedakah. In the previous pasuk, it was about someone who was faltering, and you had to hechzapto, you had to strengthen them. Here it seems to be whatever the person is lacking. In other words, here there's a more subjective element, which is what do people feel they're lacking. In fact, the Gemara says that if someone has been very wealthy and is now impoverished, tzedakah, all else being equal, obviously there may be a limit to funds available, but if the funds are available, tzedakah would mandate maintaining this wealthy person on a reasonable level of wealthy lifestyle, because they will miss and lack their previous wealthy life more than someone maybe who lived a simple life all along. So it may sound unfair. This person was lucky enough to be wealthy and now you're considering them a wealthy lifestyle, but clearly for someone who was always of modest means, living in a basic clean accommodation with basic food and basic clothing, that may be enough. For the wealthy individual, they may suffer significantly if they're not able to be maintained in the degree closer to what they were used to previously. So again, it's obvious that if the choice is between providing the mansion for the previously wealthy person or bread for the poor person, that has to come first. But if there are sufficient funds, it is a legitimate use of tzedakah to maintain someone in the lifestyle they were used to, because given how they've become used, this is something that they are lacking. By the way, in that link, what does the word evyon mean? What is the literal translation of kiyebecha evyon? If it's translated in art scholars in our chumash that we've got in front of us as a destitute person. The grammatical root of the word evyon may be linked to the word longing, like litav, to long, to desire. So an evyon may be someone who goes through life longing and desiring and feeling they're missing out on things. So again, we're obviously we're not talking about someone who has crazy expectations or just is a greedy person. But poor people often go through life feeling they're missing out the whole time. This is one meaning of the word evyon, perhaps the etymology of the word evyon. Okay, so one has an evyon. We saw the geographical aspect to it. That's the first part of the pasuk. What about the second part of pasuk 9 of pasuk 7?
You should kind of give willingly, like you shouldn't hold anything back.
You should give willingly. How do you should give willingly?
And saying this and that, you shouldn't hold it back.
Lovely, very, very nice. So there's two parts here. It says don't harden your heart and don't hold your hand back. So there's an emotional element to it and a physical or action element to it. So both don't harden your heart and don't hold your hand back. In other words, it's possible to give and not hold your hand back, but also begrudge. And it's possible to therefore harden your heart at the same time as giving to this person. So maybe I give to the person because I'm socially shamed not to do it, or it's a gala dinner and everyone's pledging generously to tzedakah and I feel bad not to, or my friend is running a charity campaign and I feel I need to give them matching, but inside my heart I feel very profoundly uncaring towards the person. Or perhaps we'll deal with this later. Perhaps I'm very unsympathetic to their plight. I don't really see them struggling to support themselves, or I don't understand the lifestyle choices they're making. Why can't they pull themselves together and sort their life out? We'll have to look at how Halachot deals with all those cases. But don't harden your heart, number one. And number two, in practice, give to the person. So this is this pasuk over here. In halachic terminology, what this is telling us is that if there's a poor person who needs money and they're there in front of me, they approach me, and I don't give them some support, I'm transgressing a loisase, a negative commandment. So we know there's Tariag mitzvahs, there's 613 commandments in the Torah, of which 248 are positive, 265 are negative. One of the negative commandments in the Torah is lo sa'amitz es levavcha, don't harden your heart, and don't hold your hand back. So this is a mitzvah lo say this is a negative commandment. And in other tzedakah is halacha. It's got halachic. It's part of Shulchan Aruch. It's not just a nice generous act. I mentioned that in terms of the etymology of the language of tzedakah, but it's halacha. It's one of the 613 commandments. A mitzvah lo say not to hold back. Okay, so this is the pasuk Zion. Let's have a look at pasuk Ches and have a think about that. It's going to the positive side of that. Put that into halachic terminology. It's got a lo saseh and also naseh. So it's got a negative commandment and a positive commandment. Pasuk Ches is a positive commandment to give tzedakah. Ki pasayach tiftach es yodcha lo. You should surely open your hands to this person. That's the mitzvah aseh. Now pasuk Ches says that how should you open your hands? How should you fulfill this mitzvah tzedakah? Through lending. Okay, so lending is a type of tzedakah. Why is lending a type of tzedakah? You're not charging interest. You're temporarily sacrificing your money. So it's true, I'll get it back. But in the meantime, I'm allowing someone to use it. Right? This is the concept of a gemach or the like, right? Where there's a free loan society. Lending someone is a type of tzedakah. And for someone who can use the loan to reset themselves up, re-establish themselves, this is considered a higher form of tzedakah than pure charity, pure giving. Why is it a higher form of tzedakah? Enabling them to be independent, number one, and preserving dignity, and because it can be reused then for someone else. So if there are people who need tzedakah, there's no point giving them loans. They're never going to be able to pay back. They're very elderly, unwell, unable to set up their own business or do their own training or whatever it may be to become independent. So such a person one has to give tzedakah to. But for someone who can use this money to then become independent, it's a better form of tzedakah. Again, we'll see in halacha. So we're jumping ahead a little bit here with many halachas, but it is a better form of tzedakah to give a loan because it preserves the person's dignity, allows them to become independent, and then if the money is still available, it can be used for other forms of tzedakah. So that's pasuk Ches. Finally, we get to pasuk Yud, which it depends how you understand the sequence of Passukim. I don't want to go into this in too much detail over here because the pasuk in pasuk Tes then interrupts with Shemitah. That we just learned these halachas a few months ago. The end of Shemitah, there's the prusbul, there's the cancelling of the loan and cancelling of debts and so on. We won't go through this. But pasuk Yud says, "Noson titein lo." You should surely give to the recipient. V'lo yerav levavcha misitcha lo. Don't let your heart become bad or feel bad in giving to this person. So this is, depending how you understand the sequence of Passukim, perhaps the idea of nesina, of giving, rather than just loaning, or maybe a continuation of the idea of loaning. So these are the sequence of Passukim. So anything else, just before we move on, just looking at the language of the Passukim, and anything else strikes you about any points in the language? Which pasuk, sorry? Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying besides the fact that it's Eretz Yisrael, it's an awareness that what you have in Eretz Yisrael really comes from Hashem. Right. In other words, just see yourself as a shliach of Hashem. Is that what you're saying? Or am I misunderstanding? Yeah. Just see yourself as an agent. Yeah, absolutely. Just see yourself as funneling the. Right, because it all comes from Hashem anyway. Yeah, that very nice. Okay. Any other thoughts around the pasuk? Yes.
On pasuk when it says to give like whatever is left to him, does that mean that can that also be taken to an understanding that if a person believes he needs XYZ money, whatever kind of support, and he feels he needs it himself, does that mean that is what the Passukim is referring to? Is about the recipient side of expectations, what he needs, or is it looking at it from the giver's perspective?
What day machsoro, that which is lacking.
Yeah,
The Chazal understand it to mean from the recipient side. I mean, obviously within limits. Someone's got fantasies of needs, but Chazal understands it to be reflecting that subjectively different people need different things, and therefore give it from the recipient's perspective that some people may need more than others. You can't just maintain everyone on an equal standard of living. You may think that justice means get everyone onto the equal standard of living. That's not the case. Some people may need more than others.
But it's the recipient to say that over.
Or us to try and understand, I'm not sure, but for us to try and understand the needs of the recipient, yeah, but it's from the recipient's perspective. Okay, there are two other points I'll mention in this pasuk before we finish our analysis of the pasuk. One is there's quite a lot of double use of expressions over here. Now, it's probably something, it's beyond the scope of this year to discuss double verbs, but one of the features of perhaps Hebrew grammar and the Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew used in the Torah, is it often uses double verbs. Ki pasoyach tiftach. An opening you should open, or you should surely open. That's pasuk ches. Pasuk yud, nosoin titin, you should surely give. A giving you should give. So there's a lot of discussion as to what this double form of language is and why the Torah phrases itself in this way. And it's actually a debate that already features in the Gemara as to whether this is just a turn of phrase, like a literary device, which the Gemara calls Dibra Torah Koloshim B'nei Adam. The Torah is just speaking in the language of human beings, and it's a literary device to emphasize things and the like, or maybe as halachic implication or other implication. But it's definitely a way of stressing things. It's definitely an emphasis, that's for sure. You should surely open. You should surely give. In other words, there should be no hesitancy about this. So we spoke about the fact that one should give. It's a lav, it's a loisase, a negative commandment not to refuse to give. It's a negative commandment to harden your heart, to in your heart not to feel empathy and willingness to give. But also when you do give, in the positive commandment, give open-handed. Pasayach tiftach, give open-handed. Nosim titan, you should surely give. Don't sort of give, hesitantly, where you're sort of giving and pulling back because it's painful for you to give. So that's certainly the Pshuta Shemikla, the simplest understanding of this double phrase of giving, that tzedakah should be given full-heartedly. I think that's another important point to bring out in the pasuk. The final thing I would say in the pasuk, which is interesting, you may like this, you may not like this in the language. I'm in my own mind, I'm not 100% sure about this. See what you think. There's a lot of discussion in the Sifrei Musa about the idea that negative actions, for example, in the world of chesed, why should I make sure, let me phrase it the other way around, why should I make sure I give a poor person money? Now, you may say in order to ensure that they have money, because otherwise if I don't give them, they'll starve. And there's a school of thought that believes this is the case. In other words, my responsibility is to give money, otherwise they may starve. But there is a significant school of thought in Machshava that says the person is going to be the same either way. If I don't give him, then the result will come through someone else. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will what a person is meant to receive, they will receive. So why do I have to give it? Because of me, because of my muscles of chesed, because of my spiritual exercise, because I need to transcend, I need to become a generous and kind person. The Torah wants me to grow and expand myself, not to be a hard-hearted, selfish person. Now, again, there's a lot of debate. This really gets caught up in broader issues about how Hashem runs the world and what difference we humans can make. But there's definitely sources for this idea. For example, Mordechai says this to Esther. When Esther's hesitant about going into Achashverosh, he says, look, if you choose not to, the Klal Yisrael will be saved. The art of Eisrich you'll be the one destroyed. In other words, I want you to go into Achashverosh because you need to do the right thing. You should be a moral human being who does the right thing. Not because we need it. Hashem will run the world how he wants, but you need to be a moral person. So, similarly when it comes to tzedakah, And maybe also this is what the Pasuk is saying. I mean, look at the language of the Pasuk. Lo sa'amis levavecha, don't harden your heart. Lo sikras yotzah, don't clench your fist. Lo yeira levavcha, don't let your heart become evil. In other words, the Torah isn't saying, or doesn't emphasize at least, make sure you give because this person will starve, this person will need it. The Torah is saying, make sure you give so that you aren't a tight-fisted person, so that you aren't a hard-hearted person, so that you aren't an evil hearted person, maybe in line with that sort of Musa idea that the reason to do things isn't just because of the end result, but also because of the effect it has on you. And the truth is, in a sense, we can avoid and skip this significant, like theological or philosophical machlokas. We can think, whatever the idea is from the perspective of the recipients and their importance to them, there's also an importance for me so that I can be a giver, for me to do the morally correct thing. I don't mean in a selfish way, so I can be a giver, but humans, we humans, we Jews should do that which is correct. Al pi halacha, that which is correct spiritually and morally, and therefore we should give so that we are so that we're doing that which we're meant to do, as Mordechai said to Esther. If you want to destroy yourself, fine, but that's a reading of the pasuk. Okay, so this is an introduction to Tzedaka. Just to, draw practical halachic conclusions on this, because this is meant to be not just a sort of mashava, musashir, but also practical halacha. The first halacha really we've learned today is a very simple one, which is if someone asks you for money, you should give the person. There is both a mitzvah saseh to give the person, and refusing to give the person is a mitzvah lo saseh. This is the first and most basic halacha of Hilchos Tzedaka that needs to be said. In Mitzvah Hashem, not next week because I'm away, but in 2 weeks' time, we'll look at the halachos of Tzedaka in more detail and carry on. But for now, this is an introduction to Hilchos Tzedaka. We've seen the Passukim, we've analyzed the Passukim, we've opened up many beginning of halachic things that we'll look at in more detail in future weeks. But the most basic halacha is there's a mitzvah saseh, there's a mitzvah lo saseh. The son approaches us and needs us, we need to give tzedakah. Irrespective of the halacha of tithing, even if I'm never tithing, I'm never taking Maaser. But if there's someone there that needs money from me, I have to give the person. So if I go through life and I happen never to become aware of an oni, I would be exempt from this mitzvah. I haven't transgressed the mitzvah saseh, I haven't transgressed the mitzvah lo saseh. But if there's an oni in front of me, I need to give the person. And this is really in terms of completing the circle, why I said that tzedakah is a different mitzvah to maaser. I can go through life and never tithe. Now I've lost the mitzvah of maaser, but that doesn't mean I'll lose the mitzvah of tzedakah. When someone approaches me, I still need to give them. I can go through life and do the tithing. If I never meet an oni, I won't be able to give the mitzvah of tzedakah. So this mitzvah saseh is not a mitzvah to tithe. The Torah doesn't say anything about tithing. It's not a mitzvah to set aside money of a certain percentage. It doesn't mention any of that. All it says is if someone is in front of you who needs money, don't ignore them and give them. Mitzvah lo saseh, negative commandments, and mitzvah saseh. This is the chapter heading of Hilchos Tzedaka, even leaving aside Hilchos Maaser. So we'll stop here for today. And Mitzvah Hashem, as I said, not next week, unfortunately, but 2 weeks' time, we'll carry on with looking in more detail. Actually, okay, tachlis, how do I do the mitzvah tzedakah? What are my priorities? How do I work it out? And we will eventually get to very hands-on halachas of how do I calculate mass and everything else, but that's still several weeks in the future. Okay, very good. I wish everyone. Yes, a question. Yeah.
So, like, you have to every time someone comes up to you and asks you for money, you have an obligation to give them.
That is correct. Yes, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be 5 pence, 10 pence. Obviously, we have a responsibility to use our money wisely, and that may involve due diligence, and therefore it may involve giving money to organizations that help people, and an awareness that you don't know much about the person asking, and so on. But a Jew shouldn't close your fist. You shouldn't be tight-hearted and tight-fisted. Yes, you should give something. There's 2 other factors I'll mention over here, which is there's not a mitzvah to pursue aniyim when you don't know much about them. So it's a sad fact that if you see a person sleeping rough on the street, it may be unsafe for you to approach them, maybe not. You have to know the person. It may be, if you don't know much about them, that giving them money isn't the greatest gift. Maybe buy them a hot coffee or a sandwich or something like that. So we do need to use judgment. But in and of in itself, if someone approaches you, you should give them something. It doesn't need to be a massively generous gift. That will come onto maaser and tithing and make sure one gives generously. And it may make sense to allocate one's tzedakah's funds with caution, because unfortunately there are people out there who it's not helpful to give them money. But one shouldn't tighten one's fist. One should give. Yes, absolutely. If someone approaches one should give. That's the first halacha that we're learning. And if you don't, it's losing a mitzvah say and breaking a mitzvah say. Yeah. And again, I'm conscious that there's safety considerations and other things, but in principle, this is what's being said. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll stop here for today, and in Hashem, we'll carry on learning Hilchos Tzedaka next week.